Hello, everyone. This is Dave, and welcome to the third installment of Democracy's Third Wave, quick reading and light analysis video. There is a little bit of background noise. There's some water being boiled for mugicha and other daily household activity noises, so that's not best for listening, but it's actually a really good opportunity to practice listening in slightly difficult listening situations, which are most situations. Usually we're not in a soundproof booth with noise-canceling headphones to help us out, so we should get used to that. So let's go. Snowballing. The impact of snowballing on democratization was clearly evident in 1990 in Bulgaria, Romania, Yugoslavia, Mongolia, Nepal, and Albania. It also affected movements towards liberalization in some Arab and African countries. In 1990, for instance, it was reported that the upheaval in Eastern Europe had fueled demands for change in the Arab world and prompted leaders in Egypt, Jordan, Tunisia, and Algeria to open up more political space for the expression of discontent. The East European example had its principal effect on the leaders of authoritarian regimes, not on the people they ruled. President Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, for instance, reacted with shocked horror to televised pictures of the execution by firing squad of his friend, Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceausescu. A few months later, commenting that, "You know what's happening across the world," he announced that he would allow two parties beside his own to compete in elections in 1993. In Tanzania, Julius Nyerere observed that if changes take place in Eastern Europe, then other countries with one-party systems and which profess socialism will also be affected. His country, he added, could learn a lesson or two from Eastern Europe. Now there's a train in the background. Haha. More sound pollution. In Nepal, in April 1990, the government announced that King Birendra was lifting the ban on political parties as a result of the international situation and the rising expectations of the people. If a country lacks favorable internal conditions, however, snowballing alone is unlikely to bring about democratization. The democratization of countries A and B is not a reason for democratization in country C, unless the conditions that favored it in the former also exist in the latter. Although the legitimacy of democratic governments came to be accepted throughout the world in the 1980s, economic and social conditions favorable to democracy were not everywhere present. The worldwide democratic revolution may create an external environment conducive to democratization, but it cannot produce the conditions necessary for democratization within a particular country. In Eastern Europe, the major obstacle to democratization was Soviet control. Once it was removed, the movement to democracy spread rapidly. There is no comparable external obstacle to democratization in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. If rulers in these areas chose authoritarianism before December 1989, why can they not continue to choose it thereafter? The snowballing effect would be real only to the extent that it led them to believe in the desirability or necessity of democratization. The events of 1989 in Eastern Europe undoubtedly encouraged democratic opposition groups and frightened authoritarian leaders elsewhere. Yet given the previous weakness of the former and the long-term repression imposed by the latter, it seemed doubtful that the East European example will actually produce significant progress toward democracy in most other authoritarian countries. By 1990, many of the original causes of the third wave had become significantly weaker, even exhausted. Neither the White House, the Kremlin, the European Community, nor the Vatican was in a strong position to promote democracy. In places where it did not already exist, primarily in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. It remains possible, however, for new forces favoring democratization to emerge. After all, who in 1985 could have foreseen that Mikhail Gorbachev would facilitate democratization in Eastern Europe? In the 1990s, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank could conceivably become much more forceful than they have heretofore been in making political democratization as well as economic liberalization a precondition for economic assistance. France might become more active in promoting democracy among its former African colonies, where its influence remained substantial. The Orthodox churches could emerge as a powerful influence for democracy in southeastern Europe and the Soviet Union. A Chinese proponent of glasnost could come to power in Beijing, or a new Jeffersonian-style Nasser could spread a democratic version of pan-Arabism in the Middle East. Japan could use its growing economic clout to encourage human rights and democracy in the poor countries to which it makes loans and grants. In 1990, none of these possibilities seemed very likely, but after the surprises of 1989, it would be rash to rule anything out.